95% of us that vote show our driver's license when we go to the movie or travel or whatever we do. There's about 4 to 6% of us that do not have issued government IDs. We should all celebrate the recent decision of the federal court. Every single one of us, whether you support photo ID or not, you should celebrate what the federal court did, because it stood up for the rights of legal Americans properly registered to vote and their continued right to vote. The integrity of the vote is important, absolutely important. But the right to vote is paramount. The right to vote we died for. The right to vote we created a country for. The right to vote is more paramount than somebody's photo ID bill. Our state legislature passed one of the sloppiest pieces of legislation you will ever read and called it photo ID. They could have, in fact, amendments were offered to copy the Georgia law, and they were rejected by the Republicans in the Senate and the House. And instead of taking a bill that modeled after states that had passed the constitutional test, they went further. And that's why we should have celebrated. Every single one of us should celebrate the federal court ruling. They went too far. We have 88 counties without the ability to do a driver's license. People have to drive. We have people in this state that were born to midwives that don't have birth certificates but have been registered to vote, are legal citizens of this country, and have voted for 50 years that suddenly would have been denied the right to vote. That's just wrong. We have the young lady in League City that pulled me aside 2 weeks ago that said, I want to tell you the story of my father. My father was adopted as a child. His records were sealed in Florida. For some reason, he ended up with a Social Security number registered in one proceeding and one in California, and it caused great confusion in him proving his citizenship. He's voted for 50 years. It cost $2,000 to open up the sealed records to get his birth certificate in Florida. And she said, we're too poor to do that, but my father deserves the right to vote. And she's right. He is a legal citizen. There's nothing wrong with that. My mother and father-in-law are 85 years old. They're in a nursing home. They are lucid. They're able to vote. They have early Alzheimer's. They don't have a government-issued ID. And true, I could go pick them up and carry them a county away and get some kind of government-issued ID. If they had passed a bill, what they did was they took legally registered American citizens and changed the rules. These people have done everything they're supposed to do. Now, understand the underpinning of this is no one's ever proved voter fraud. Not voter fraud on the day you show up and vote. And understand that the voter ID bill did nothing with mail-in balloting. It only applies to people that show up in person and vote. Now, if you wanted to commit voter fraud, would you do it by showing up in person at a courthouse and guessing a name on a list and hoping somebody didn't recognize you as a fraud and throw yourself in jail? Or would you do it by mail-in balloting? If there is voter fraud, it's in the mail-in balloting system, and neither party wants to do anything about that. The voter ID bills dealt only with people showing up in person to vote, and no one has ever established voter fraud in that scenario. No one. So you are changing the rules for legally registered American citizens. 4 to 6%. Almost 250,000 people in Texas. What's the population of Amarillo?
180.
About 193.
About one and a third times the size of Amarillo. Those people denied the right to vote. Legal Texas citizens. Because you all of a sudden change the rules and you want to say, show a picture ID. Now, if you want to say, from this day forward, every person in the state of Texas that registers to vote will be issued, when you apply, a photo ID, sign me up. It's free. It comes with your application to vote. You show it when you vote. I'm fine. They didn't do that. They changed the rules in midstream on a bunch of people, and it was targeted towards certain groups. And that's why it's hard for me to stand up and say, look, voter ID, photo ID, polls 80%. The easy political thing for me to say is I'm for it, but it would be wrong because I know the true facts. And if I'm, as a United States Senator, not willing to stand up and defend the right of Americans to vote, what good am I? I don't deserve to be there. Because if I won't stand as the last vestige to defend the right to vote, how can I expect anyone else to? And I will defend their right to vote. Texas had the chance to follow a model that was constitutional. It chose not to. We should celebrate the fact that our federal court said no. Don't do it that way. Because the right to vote is paramount. That's the way I feel about it.